I remember the day Earth got its first message from aliens. We always imagined it would be a grand greeting, maybe a historic handshake, or at least a cosmic hello. But it turns out our introduction to the galactic community was more like getting a cosmic speeding ticket. One moment, we were celebrating finally cracking faster than light travel, and the next we were staring a legal notice beamed to Mission Control. IT was a routine afternoon at Mission Control. Well, as routine as it gets when you're testing prototype FTL drives. I was there, hoping to witness humanity's next giant leap. The engineers had been running simulations all morning, and everyone felt optimistic. Suddenly, all the screens blinked and lit up with an incoming signal. At first, we thought it was static or a glitch. Then a voice crackled through the speakers, and an automated translation began. My heart pounded as I realized this was an alien transmission. The room went dead quiet as the message played. It wasn't the warm, friendly alien greeting we dreamed about. No, it was more like an interstellar traffic citation. The voice introduced itself as a representative of something called the Galactic Council of Interstellar Transit. What followed was basically a bill, an astronomical one. The council demanded that Earth pay 50 trillion credits per year for unauthorized use of regulated space lanes. We exchanged baffled looks. Maybe it was a prank or a translation error. But no, it was real. 50 trillion credits a year. We had no idea what that translated to in dollars, but any way you sliced it, it was an impossible sum, probably many times Earth's total economy. And for what? Earth had only just tested an FTL drive and hadn't even left our solar system yet. How could we be violating space lanes already? We had never even heard of regulated space lanes until that moment. The message anticipated our confusion. It cited some obscure interstellar transit law, referencing a toll beacon, registration XT 4891, located on Titan of all places. Yes, Titan, Saturn's moon. Apparently, that beacon marked a galactic transit route, and any use of FTL travel in our region was subject to tolls. Titan? A toll beacon? We'd sent probes to Titan and never noticed anything alien there. The transmission went on in a businesslike tone, as if this were all routine. It claimed Earth had racked up about 30 years' worth of unpaid tolls. 30 years. That made no sense. 30 years ago was the mid-1990s, and the closest thing we had to interstellar travel then was pointing radio telescopes at the sky. Yet here we were being told we'd been cruising their space lanes for decades without paying, and now the bill was due. I half expected to see late fees on top of it. The message ended with a stern warning. Pay up by the deadline, whenever that was. We had to guess their time units, or face unspecified further actions. The ominous tone left a lot to the imagination. Then it clicked off, leaving us in stunned silence. The only sound was the faint beeping of our consoles. For a long moment, nobody spoke. We were all just trying to process the whiplash. Not only were we not alone in the universe, but the first thing aliens said to us was essentially, "You owe us money." Then everyone started talking at once. So we're excited. First contact, after all. Others were furious or panicking. I heard someone joke bitterly that the first aliens we meet turn out to be galactic traffic cops. I just stood there, staring at the blank screen, wondering what on Earth, or off Earth, we were supposed to do now. Within hours, the world's leaders knew about it. An emergency gathering was called, and I soon found myself in a packed conference room with the UN Secretary General, top scientists, military brass, anyone who might help figure this out. The mood was electric and tense. The Secretary General summed it up. Yes, we had gotten a message from extraterrestrials. No, it wasn't a greeting. It was a gigantic bill. We needed a plan. A flurry of theories filled the room. Could it be a mistake? Perhaps an ancient automated system sent the fine without the council realizing the Titan beacon had died ages ago. Maybe if we explained, they'd understand it was an error. Or was it some kind of test, a way to gauge our response? But the most unsettling idea was that this was deliberate, a shakedown. One general bluntly likened it to a protection racket, a powerful group squeezing a newcomer for cash under threat. It didn't help that we had picked up faint hints from intercepted signals in the past that big galactic powers bully newcomers. Whatever it was, mistake, test, or scam, none of us was inclined to just pay up without questions. Humanity wasn't going to hand over our planet's wealth to some galactic bully without understanding who was asking, and WHY.so we made a plan. First, verify the claim. If there was really a toll beacon on Titan, find it and learn everything we could. Second, prepare for the worst. Accelerate our technological development, especially FTL capabilities, in case we needed to stand up for ourselves. If trouble was coming, we didn't want to be stuck crawling through space while they had faster-than-light travel. Within days, a probe orbiting Saturn was redirected to scan Titan. Sure enough, it found something. On Titan's orange plains, the probe spotted a clearly artificial structure partially buried in ice. It was clearly the beacon, proof we weren't crazy. The beacon looked like a battered metal tower, pitted by ages of Titan's weather. Alien symbols were etched into its sides, and a cracked dish sat on top. It was completely inert. Our scientists estimated it had been offline for 40,000 years or more. It had been sitting there since before human civilization existed, quietly waiting for someone to pay a toll we never even knew about. Accessing the beacon's innards remotely, we hit the jackpot. Inside were components and data far beyond our technology. We carefully retrieved what data we could. Among its files were fragments about the transit network, communications protocols, even coordinates pointing toward the Galactic Council's hub. More importantly, the beacon's tech gave us clues about faster-than-light travel and communication. Our scientists were ecstatic and immediately got to work. Around the world, labs joined forces to reverse engineer the beacon's technology. A frenzy of collaboration swept the globe as everyone focused on one goal: leveling the playing field. If the Council had FDL ships, then by golly, we would have one too, and fast. Amazingly, within a few weeks, we actually built one. Using our prototype engines enhanced with alien tech, we assembled a sleek, functional starship. It was a patchwork of human and alien tech, and it worked. We named it Defiant, a fitting name, we thought, given the circumstances. Meanwhile, we held off sending any reply to the Council. Better to arrive in person with a starship than to send a pleading message from afar. Quietly, we also compiled every bit of evidence and historical data we could find about other civilizations possibly facing the same treatment. The more we dug, the more it seemed like others had likely been slapped with similar demands when they first ventured into space. It was like discovering we were part of some cosmic pattern. Launch day for the Defiant came, and our crew of 12 strapped in. I was chosen to join the crew as the diplomatic officer. As engines hummed, I was a bundle of nerves and determination. The plan was straightforward. Jump to the Council's location we'd deduced from the beacon data, then confront them with our case. Not to start a fight, but to show we weren't helpless and to demand fair treatment. We engaged the FDL drive, and in a blink, the stars outside stretched into streaks of light. It was a dizzying, awe-inspiring moment. Humanity's first real leap across the galactic void. A moment later, we dropped out of FDL at our destination. Instead of empty space, we found ourselves near an enormous ring-shaped station. This had to be some kind of checkpoint on the approach to the Council. Our comms crackled almost immediately. A brisk, alien voice demanded we identify ourselves. Our pilot responded calmly. "This is Earth Vessel Defiant from the Sol System. We request an audience with the Galactic Council." There was a brief pause. Then the voice replied, instructing us to hold position and prepare to be escorted. 2 silvery escort craft appeared on our flanks to guide us. We certainly didn't come all this way to start a fight, so we followed their lead. They guided us to the heart of the Council's territory. Soon a massive complex came into view, orbiting a blue-white gas giant. The Council's central station, a cluster of huge platforms and domes like a city in space. Our tiny ship docked in a hangar bay among vessels from countless worlds. It was hard not to feel awed and a bit scared. Stepping out of the airlock, we were met by a protocol officer, a tall gray-green being with large dark eyes. She welcomed us formally via our translators and led us down polished corridors, and we caught glimpses of other aliens. Tall, blue-robed figures, small, multi-armed creatures, and more. It was fascinating, but my stomach was doing flips. We were here to challenge them on their own turf. At last, we entered the Council chamber. It was an immense hall, arranged like an amphitheater. Dozens of alien delegates sat in tiers above us, each at their own station. We walked out to the center of the circular floor, feeling very small under their gaze. From a high podium, the chair of the council spoke. Our earpieces translated. We were being given the floor to speak. That I stepped forward, aware that every eye, or equivalent, was on us. I cleared my throat, hoping my voice wouldn't tremble. Honored council members, I began, thank you for receiving us. We come from Earth, new to the interstellar community. Your first message to us was a demand for tolls we supposedly failed to pay. We wish to explain and resolve this issue. A hush fell as I continued. I explained that we had only just achieved FDL and had never heard of their tolls until that message. I described finding the Titan beacon, how it had been offline for millennia, meaning we received no guidance or warning about any fees. Given that, I argued, the fine was unwarranted. I stressed that this was a misunderstanding, not willful neglect, and we wanted to resolve it fairly. When I finished, the silence was thick. Finally, the chair responded, voice resonant in the hall. The translation came, ignorance of the law does not exempt you from the law. The Sol system utilized hyperlanes without authorization, which incurs a cost by our statutes. Some of the delegates nodded in agreement. My heart sank a bit. The chair went on, suggesting that although Earth was at fault, the council was willing to offer a structured payment plan and oversight to help us meet our obligations, essentially putting us under watch while we paid tribute over time. That didn't sit right with me or anyone on our team. They were treating us like delinquent customers. I summoned my courage and pressed our case again. I requested that the council formally review our situation before enforcing any penalty. I insisted they examine our evidence first, and that fairness should apply even to newcomers. Some delegates looked irritated at my persistence. One, a reptilian being with glittering scales, hissed that Earth had clearly broken the rules and there was nothing to debate. We should just accept the consequences. I feared that sentiment might carry the day. But then, to my surprise, another voice rose in our support. A tall, four-armed delegate stood up for us. My people faced a similar introduction with a dead beacon, he said, voice ringing out. We complied back then, but the bitterness lingered. Perhaps we should handle new civilizations more fairly. A few delegates nodded or expressed agreement at this. I felt a glimmer of hope. Another delegate in a hover chair chimed in. This one pointed out, if the Titan beacon was neglected for so long, can we blame Earth for not responding to it? That caused more murmurs in the hall. Clearly, some members of the council had reservations about the current policy, or at least about how this looked. Seizing the moment, we presented the data we'd brought. A hologram flickered to life above us, showing records and dates from the Titan beacon and beyond. We demonstrated how Earth's case fit a pattern. Other new civilizations have been hit with massive fines when ancient beacons in their systems fell silent. I then asked if this was truly how the council wanted to welcome new species, through threats and fines instead of friendship. You could almost feel the weight of that question settling over the delegates. The chamber erupted into chatter. Some delegates looked shocked, others defensive. The chair called for order and announced that the council would recess briefly to deliberate. We were escorted out of the chamber while they discussed our fate behind closed doors. It was the most anxious wait of my life. We knew the council wouldn't easily admit fault. Centuries of protocol were on their side. After a tense wait, we were summoned back in. I took a deep breath as the chair delivered the verdict. In formal tones, it declared that given the evidence and unique circumstances, the council would drop all toll charges against Earth. I exhaled in relief. I even heard someone on our team whisper yes behind me. The chair went on to say that the council would launch a review of its first contact protocols. Then came an unexpected surprise. The chair announced that the council was extending an invitation for Earth to join as a probationary member. Our team traded astonished looks. Us on the council? That was a far cry from being blacklisted as lawbreakers. The chair said this would allow the council to guide us and avoid such misunderstandings in the future. It took me a second to find my voice. I thanked the council sincerely. Earth is honored to accept, I said, promising we would prove ourselves worthy. Some delegates still looked displeased, but many seemed satisfied with this resolution. Soon we were back on the Defiant, heading home victorious. Relief and joy slowly replaced our tension. For a while we just sat there quietly, letting it all sink in, It could easily have gone the other way. Then our pilot let out a triumphant whoop, and one of the scientists laughed. I can't believe that actually worked. We all felt that same mix of relief and astonishment. Back on Earth, people poured into the streets in celebration, like we just won the biggest championship of all time. In a way, humanity won its first interstellar showdown without firing a shot. We proved we wouldn't be bullied and that we could stand as determined equals among the stars. And that, my friends, is how Earth's first contact with aliens went from a terrifying invoice to a ticket into the Galactic Council. It started as a shock and could have ended in disaster, but instead it became a story of standing our ground and forging our own path among the stars. Now, when we look up at the night sky, we know we're part of something bigger, and we earned our place on our own terms.